The examination chamber hummed with the low resonance of 17 alien civilizations holding their collective breath. Kalen, a Vethri scholar of considerable renown, his bioluminescent scales cycling through colors that communicated academic prestige across four-star systems, floated at the center of the conclave's grand amphitheater. Around him, representatives from the Galactic Academic Union sat in concentric rings, their various anatomies arranged on seats engineered to accommodate everything from gaseous consciousness to crystalline thought forms. This was the proving, the most sacred intellectual ritual in the known galaxy. Only 43 beings had ever passed it in 8,000 years of recorded interstellar history. The 44th candidate sat at a simple desk below. She was human. Lyra Chun, 26 years old, doctoral candidate from the University of New Shanghai, smelled faintly of cold coffee and dry erase markers. Her dark hair was pulled into a bun secured by two styluses and what appeared to be a bent paper clip. She wore a university hoodie with a stain on the sleeve that she hadn't noticed until she was already on the transport shuttle and had decided, philosophically, not to care about. Kalen descended toward her with the measured grace of someone who had rehearsed condescension into an art form. Candidate Chun. His translator bead rendered his harmonics into flat, clipped syllables. You understand that the proving is conducted across 48 hours of continuous examination. You will be assessed on cosmological theory, recursive mathematics, multidimensional ethics, the philosophy of synthetic consciousness, and 17 additional disciplines that your species has, at best, partially theorized. Lyra was reading something. A paper document, no less. Actual press fiber pages covered in handwritten notes so dense they looked like a language made of anxiety. She turned a page without looking up. Kalen's scales flickered amber. Irritation. You will face questions that have destabilized lesser minds. The proving has produced 4 recorded psychological collapses and 1 diplomatic incident. Lyra looked up at that. Which question caused the diplomatic incident? The recursive paradox of the 9th tier. Oh, that one's just a notation problem. She went back to her notes. Whoever wrote it conflated 2 separate logical frameworks and called the contradiction a paradox. It isn't. It's a typo, essentially. The silence that followed was the kind that has mass. Kalen's scales went very still, a color that the Vethri associated with something between profound offense and reluctant curiosity. Around the amphitheater, delegates shifted. Someone's atmospheric processor vented a small cloud of what might have been surprise. He recovered. The examination will begin in 1 standard interval. Is there anything you require? Lyra finally set down her papers. She looked at Kalen with the particular expression of someone who had pulled 3 consecutive all-nighters and had passed through tired into a kind of crystalline, weaponized clarity on the other side. Yeah, actually. She folded her hands on the desk. I have a question first. Candidates do not pose questions to the... Do you want casualties, she said, or notes? Another silence. A different kind this time. Heavier. Kalen's translation bead took a moment longer than usual. I don't understand the distinction. Sure you do. Lyra leaned back in her chair. You told me 4 people have had psychological collapses in this exam. I'm guessing the conclave frames that as proof of the proving's rigor. Intellectual martyrdom. Very dramatic, very impressive. She gestured broadly at the amphitheater, the 17 civilizations, the architecture of accumulated cosmic gravity. But I'm not here to be a casualty for your mythology. So I'm asking, do you want me to take the exam the way you've designed it? The theatrical, soul-crushing, breaking point version? Or do you want me to actually teach you something? Kalen stared at her. Because those are 2 different exams, Lyra continued. The first one, I might pass or I might not. And either way you get a good story about how hard the proving is. The second one, she picked up her stack of papers and set it down with a resonant thud. I'm going to dismantle half your foundational cosmological assumptions before the lunch break, and you're going to need to take notes. The Vethri scholar had lived 412 years. He had debated synthetic philosophers, negotiated treaty languages with the choir of 11 moons, and once spent 6 decades composing a single unifying theorem that still bore his name in 3 academic traditions. He had never been spoken to like this by something that required a hoodie to regulate its body temperature. Begin, he said. The first 6 hours were, by the conclave's own later admission, unlike anything in the archive of provings. Lyra didn't answer questions so much as she restructured them. When Kalen posed the classical cosmological opening, the enumeration of causal layers in universal formation, she answered it in 4 sentences, then spent 20 minutes explaining why the question itself contained a bias toward linear causation that had been quietly limiting Vethry theoretical physics for 3 centuries. You keep modeling cause and effect as sequential because your cognitive architecture experiences time as a single thread, she said, drawing on the transparent board she'd requested in place of the standard oral response format. Humans don't. Actually, we're remarkably bad at linear time, which is probably why we invented so many ways to write things down. But it means we stumbled into nonlinear causal modeling almost by accident. Here, she wrote something that looked like organized chaos. This is a framework we use in quantum cognition studies. Your ninth-tier paradox dissolves completely if you apply it. See, Kalen looked at the board. He looked at it for a long time. That notation, he said carefully, is not in any academic registry. Yeah, a grad student named Priya Mehta invented it in 2094 while trying to explain her dissertation to her mother, who didn't have a physics background. It's genuinely one of the most elegant simplification frameworks in theoretical mathematics. Lyra shrugged. We almost lost it because she posted it in a footnote. Footnotes are very important. I cannot stress this enough. By hour 12, 3 of the conclave delegates had descended from their observation rings to watch more closely. By hour 20, 2 more had joined them. Kalen had stopped performing the ceremonial postures of the examination entirely. He was simply standing at the board beside Lyra, pointing at things, asking questions that were no longer from the proving's official register. When you describe human conflict as an engine of theoretical development, he started. Because it is, she said. Every time we've had a catastrophic failure, war, plague, civilizational collapse, we've come out the other side with frameworks we wouldn't have developed without the pressure. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying we metabolize disaster into information. It's a terrible trait that has accidentally made us very good at certain things. She circled something on the board. Your academic tradition optimizes for stability. It produces deep, careful, generational knowledge. Ours optimizes for survival under chaos. We produce messy, brilliant, often half-finished breakthroughs at a pace that frankly alarms us too. You are alarmed by your own cognitive output. Constantly. She said it cheerfully. We don't really understand ourselves. That's also, weirdly, an advantage. We keep looking. 46 hours after it began, 2 hours past the standard duration, because no one had moved to end it, Lyra set down her stylus. The amphitheater was full, not of the original delegates, but of every scholar, diplomat, and academic observer on the station. They had come quietly, one by one, the way beings come to something when word spreads without anyone quite deciding to spread it. The notation boards were covered. 3 of them. Both sides. Kalen stood across from her. His scales were cycling through a color that had no established translation in the diplomatic index, something that the Vethry linguists would later classify, after significant debate, as the feeling of a map being redrawn. The conclave will need to deliberate, he said. Sure. Lyra started stacking her papers. Can someone validate my parking? Or, she looked around at the deep space station, whatever the equivalent is. Candidate Chun. Kalen's voice had changed. The clipped precision was still there, but something underneath it had opened. I must ask. The question you posed before the examination. You said you wished to teach us something. He paused. Was that certainty or bravado? Lyra thought about it. She picked up her bent paperclip-secured bun, took it down, and twisted it back up while she considered the question with what appeared to be genuine sincerity. About 60% certainty, she said finally. Maybe 65 by hour 3. She snapped the paperclip back. But here's the thing about humans, Kalen. We've learned that if you wait until you're 100% certain, you never start. So we ask the hard question first, before we're ready, and then we get ready fast. She shouldered her bag. The notes, she added, nodding at the covered boards, are for you. All of them. We've got more where that came from. She walked out of the examination chamber into a corridor that smelled of recycled air and distant stars, leaving 48 boards of foundational cosmological revision and one very quietly stunned Vethry scholar standing in the particular silence that comes after the world has gotten larger. Outside, She found a bench, sat down, and was asleep in under 4 minutes. Humans, Kalen would write in his report, do not conquer through force or cunning. They conquer by refusing to be impressed, and then impressing everyone else anyway.